Now you can get the same uncompromising truth you've come to expect from the Final Call newspaper on all your connected devices. Subscribe to the Final Call Digital Edition today. Go to subscribe.finalcalldigital.com.
Assalamu alaikum. We are back with another edition of Behind the Final Call cover story. Man, running a few minutes late, but we had to take care of a few things, but we are here. So welcome. Thank you for joining us once again. This issue is volume number 41, number 36. The date on the paper is June 14th. Cover of the paper, Fire Fed with Fuel. Assalamu alaikum, brother Naba'a. Why this cover story?
Walaikum salam, Brother Troy. I think this cover story is important. One, because not only have we been trying to tell the story of the Russian-Ukraine war in Eastern Europe as it develops, we've also been making sure to bear witness to and include the divine warnings from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and the same coming from Minister Farrakhan in words of guidance about what this conflict really means and where it will end up. So I was struck by certain language that was used last week. America recently again sent some expensive weapons systems to Ukraine in order to battle Russia. We've now entered, of course, there's been over 100 years now. Over 100 days of this military conflict between Ukraine and Russia, which is drawing in, of course, the Americans, the British, and the Western European allies, who are part of a group called NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, that was formed after World War II. And essentially, one of the major things about that grouping is its mutual defense and aid pacts. So Ukraine, of course, is a neighbor of Russia right on the border. Ukraine has expressed interest in becoming closer to Europe and actually joining NATO. And Russia, of course, has said that's the reason why, or Mr. Putin has said that's the reason why Russia decided to invade Ukraine, because they did not want to be an easy target or a target for weapons that were in the hands of the NATO countries, the countries of Western Europe. So anyway, we're now 100 days into this war. We're now billions of dollars spent by the United States and weapons and other types of support, monetary support, and others sent to Ukraine. So one of the things that struck me, and again, when we're looking at these things, we're looking at their developments, we're looking at also kind of the handprint or the hint of the divine hand. And one of the things that struck me this week was that you had one of the Russian officials say that this new weapons system, more sophisticated, and it allows for strikes up to, this missile system allows for strikes up to 50 miles, which means these weapons have the capacity to strike Russia. So that's part of the discussion. And whether or not these new developments, as well as the continued development, as well as the continued military support of Ukraine, whether that actually brings the world closer to peace or closer to the prophesied global war of Armageddon. So what we have seen, one of the Russian officials spoke and talked about essentially these missiles from the U.S. were adding fuel to the fire of this war. So, of course, when I heard that language, it immediately drew me to an article by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, which were actually running this issue, which says you cannot end the war by pouring more fuel on the fire of war. So we looked at that and we had some analysis, I think some good analysis in terms of what has happened since last week, maybe the last 10 days, but a very important story because it again, we need to pay rather attention to what is going on in Ukraine because we've already been told by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan that this thing that we see in Europe will eventually come home to America and that this war is opening the door to this final global conflict and a war that will destroy both America and Russia as white power in the world is removed through Allah placing them against one another, as well as his use of the weather, as well as his ability, outright ability, to destroy them. So we hope that the readers will take a few minutes and look at that story. We think there's a lot there, and there's a lot to be learned from it.
Praise due to Allah, and absolutely the words of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad ring true. I mean, in various aspects, man, I paid over $6 worth of gas, $6 per gallon for gas today, and that was insane. So, I mean, of course, that's my personal experience and my personal bias, but we definitely can see how these things are going to impact us personally, even though the bombs may not be dropped physically here. There's definitely an impact that many are feeling and will continue to feel. So,
Absolutely, with the rise in the price of gas as well as food,
yes, sir.
and that is not just in America, but it is now impacting other countries because of the Ukraine and Russia being a major breadbasket that supplied wheat and those types of products as well as fertilizers to countries around the world, in particular some of the countries in Africa and North Africa especially. So again, we said over and over again that, for these countries, when the price of a staple like bread gets to the point where people can't afford it, that becomes problematic for governments. And some of the governments in Africa are now facing that problem as well. So again, we hope that the readers will take the time, finalcall.com, go and subscribe, but stay in touch with what is going on, not just from the analysis of news, but from the divine perspectives, because we need is insight into what is happening in the world. We need guidance in a dark time. And we humbly say, but we're proud to say, you will find that guidance in the final call. And you will find that guidance contained in the words of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. For example, the article I think that we have this week is an excellent article that deals with this subject, as well as Minister Farrakhan talking about and providing guidance about these events in real time. So keep reading, stay tuned, and get an understanding of what is happening, so that the impact is not just on gas prices, it's on food prices, it's on other prices. As you look at the supply chain disruptions caused by both the war and problems that already existed during the coronavirus pandemic, which is still not over. So there's a lot in that mix.
Yes,
There's
sir.
a lot in that mix, and we really need to pay attention.
Absolutely, absolutely, and just really, even though I looked at something that personally today impacted my life. I think one of the things that you mentioned, and this is something that you can't get from anywhere else, or you shouldn't expect to get from anywhere else except the Final Call newspaper. And looking at how the article ties to the words from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, the analysis that of those who are followers of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad under the guidance of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, that they bring a different perspective on what's going on through the lens of divine revelation. So that's something, of course, we can see and we experience, as you mentioned, the food shortage, the prices of food, the prices of gas, but you're not going to get the insight, or you shouldn't expect to get the insight and get an understanding of what's behind it. And also, not what's happening right now, is because when one is able to tell you what's happening right now and giving an explanation of it, and has been telling you this for 90 years, then when they say what's going to happen after that, then you need to pay a little bit more close attention, because we are being given exactly what we should expect following these things. So all praise are due to Allah. Thank you. Want to go ahead and jump to, and we're going to come back, but I wanted to jump to page 4, and the article "Violence, Death, Destruction: America's Obsessive Gun Culture Carnage Leaves Trail of Pain." Can you touch on that? Very important article.
Yeah, this is again, we were looking at the savagery of America and looking at the destructive we saw in Uvalde, Texas. What, a little over a week or so ago, or 2 weeks ago?
About 2 weeks.
19 children and I believe 2 adults killed in a school. And not only that, but over Memorial Day weekend, there was something like 12 different incidents of shootings, mass shootings, meaning 4 or more victims, not including the shooter. But not only that, this past weekend, we saw what? We saw again a number of shootings. One in Philadelphia, where I think one person or 2 people unfortunately were killed, and I think another maybe 20 or 21 were injured. So what is it about guns? What is it about America's obsession with guns? What is it about the confusion among the people, the conflict among the people, and the refusal of leadership in the country to act to help save the lives of the American people? So we wanted to really lay this situation out again, because again it is reflective of the unraveling of a great nation. That great nation being the United States, where over and over and over again. So now we're being promised that politicians will do something. We'll keep watching and we'll see what they do, if anything at all.
Praise due to Allah. And of course, once again, all of these stories are tying together, showing that what day and time we're living in, and this is prophesied that the death would be and the blood would be in the streets. So we are definitely experiencing that. Going right to the next story, which is a story that has been covered by the Final Call before, but just giving an update on allegations of a cover-up in fatal cop shooting of Black man in Grand Rapids. Can you give us a little more insight?
Yes, this is again, we're continuing to follow the police killing of Patrick Lyoya, whose parents say it was an execution. A Black man, unarmed, shot to death by a white officer, literally shot in the back of the head just a couple months ago in Grand Rapids, Michigan. So this is again the concern of activists, people who live in Grand Rapids, Michigan, family members of this brother, who are concerned that things are being covered up, that the killing of this brother is not being dealt with forthrightly, and that their efforts already to kind of paint the officer who killed this young man, who was unarmed, basic traffic stop, that somehow or another, which we've seen in other incidents. We saw it a couple years ago in Minnesota, right? We saw it a couple years ago in Minnesota, where a young Black man ended up shot to death by a white female officer who said that she was going for her taser and pulled a weapon and killed this young man, Dante Wright. So we see it again in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And during the time of the pandemic, These police shootings have not slowed down. We also do not have federal legislation that would protect or at least give the pretense or at least try to in some way put an end to these types of deadly encounters. So again, you can read that this week in the final call as we keep following these stories that others may talk about and soon forget. We try to keep following them until they conclude.
Yes, sir, and we definitely appreciate that coverage that you can always expect that stories that we hear about, especially as it relates to our community, and that sometimes they just kind of fade out into the background. That the final call is making sure that those stories continue to be told and they are updated. And with that same spirit, of course, there's an article dealing with our brother Nipsey Hussle and the accused killer is finally being brought to trial. Can you give us a little insight on this very interesting and special coverage of the trial that will soon begin?
Yeah, I mean, we know it's been 3 years now since Nipsey Hussle was a very, very influential and successful hip hop artist in Los Angeles. He rose from street life, rose from being part of a street organization to really utilizing his musical talent and his entrepreneurial gifts to essentially go from selling drugs in a place where he was selling drugs. He and others literally purchased the plaza, and he had a store, the Marathon clothing store. And 3 years ago, he was allegedly shot to death by Eric Holder Jr. after an encounter in which Nipsey said to the alleged shooter that the shooter had the reputation of being a snitch. And according to authorities, the Mr. Holder shot and killed Nipsey Hussle. It's been 3 years. Part of that has been due to COVID and a shutdown of the courts. So we wanted to look at not just the trial, but we wanted to look at how has the area been affected, how have people been affected. This is a story by our national correspondent, Sister Charlene Muhammad, who's based in Los Angeles. So we talked to some of the people in the community. And they expressed a mixture of, I guess you could say, hurt and hope. Certainly, there have been problems in the Crenshaw district in Los Angeles, in particular with COVID over the last 2 years and friction among some groups. But the people we talked to really stressed a couple things. One, gentrification of the area remains a problem in that area where the plaza was located, where Nipsey Hussle envisioned tearing that plaza down and building in its place a mixed-use development that would include housing as well as businesses has kind of, it looks like in our view, is kind of ground to a halt. The plaza is no longer operational. It's been basically been shuttered at this point. But you have a lot of people that are working hard. Some people who used to be in street organizations that are working hard to people like the Western Region Student Minister, Brother Abdul Malik Saeed Muhammad from the Nation of Islam, who has been working for decades for peace in the area and in the city. And he has continued to do that, and others have continued to do that as well. So we heard from these different voices about their work to maintain peace, their work to promote peace among the street organizations, their efforts to provide more opportunity and more choices for young people in the area, work to actually help the community heal itself. So those who we talked to, while of course everyone would like to see a measure of justice, they also feel that there's a lot more that needs to be done in terms of healing and in terms of fulfilling this vision that Nipsey had of buying the block. In other words, saying to black people, hey, buy the places where you live and you work. And this area now, the Crenshaw district, is valuable real estate. There's a new transit line coming through that will provide access to various parts of Los Angeles, the airport, West Los Angeles, the beachfront, and other places. So there's that concern about gentrification, but there's also lessons that have been learned from the life of Nipsey Hussle that have inspired many young men, for example, to sell T-shirts or other merchandise or products as they basically try to follow the blueprint that Brother Nipsey laid out in terms of being able to create something for yourself and then encouraging the full development of our community. So the jury selection in the trial of Mr. Holder began June 2nd. That is expected to take 2 weeks. And then the trial itself right now is expected to take 2 weeks. So again, stay tuned. And again, subscribe at finalcalldigital.com.
Praise due to Allah. Thank you, Brother Naba'a, for that. Want to jump a little around. Very, of course, I know I have my bias in education, so this article on page 12 really kind of struck me and was interesting. And of course, I have my perspectives, but learning loss further exposes racial gap in education. Just another way in which we see that as long as we are amongst these people, their goal and plan is for us to be beneath them. So can you touch a little bit about the importance of this article?
Yeah. So we know that there's been over the last 2 years, much of that time, our children were not in school, and there was often really not. They were not necessarily supplied with the things that they would need to be successful while excuse me, being engaged in remote learning. So this study again showed that still that black and non-white students really lost a significant amount of what they had learned when it came to math and reading. So they're now coming out of that study by researchers was calls that school districts really need to do things differently. And of course, you also have, I'm sorry, this is one of the things from the story. At high poverty level schools that stayed remote, students lost the equivalent of 22 weeks, meaning of instruction. Racial gaps widened too. In the districts that stayed remote for most of the year, the outcome was as if Black and Hispanic students had lost 4 to 5 more weeks of instruction than white students had. So, and of course, we've got voices talking about what we need to do to address this problem among ourselves, as well as hold these school systems accountable. So I think it's a really good piece. It's a really good piece that deserves to be read, so that we can really get a handle on and get a feel for this problem. And again, COVID has not gone away. It's still here. And even in places like Chicago, there have been, over the last couple of weeks, there's been some talk that the COVID rates are going up, and they may have to go back to some of the things that they don't want to do in the state of Illinois, like mask wearing. So this problem exists in education connected to the pandemic, and we should really look at what we can do to kind of stem this learning loss. I will say this: this is one of the other things that we found just in kind of following this story generally. You've had a lot more Black children enter into homeschool, and you've had a lot of Black parents who have decided they are not going to ever send their children back. that they feel that it is better to have them at home, either teaching them themselves or part of some kind of independent network. And they feel that the quality of education that their children, the quality of education that their children is getting is better. So again, check that out. And these are the types of subjects that we like to explore to bring some light and some warning to what is happening with our people and with our communities, always with the intent that we will respond at the highest level and do everything we can to save ourselves.
Praise you to Allah. Thank you for that. One of the quotes that actually stood out to me in this article, it says the difference between students at well-resourced schools and poorly resourced schools is expected. It says calling these differences an achievement gap ignores the generational wealth and opportunities white students have. Public education is not equitable. So just really looking at what those implications are, that when you say there's an achievement gap or that there's these lost weeks of instruction, it's important that we acknowledge, as this article does, that there's other things that are being lost. But of course, our people have, and that's important because in many instances, Brother Naba, we talk about, well, what we need to do. And of course, there's a lot of work that we do need to do. But I'm glad and feel good about how you acknowledge that parents are taking responsibility for our future and saying, you know what, even though my children can go back to school, I don't trust it. And I've demonstrated that while they're home, that maybe I'll do a better job than they've been doing. And not only looking at what happens academically, but really making a connection on making a better opportunity for their futures.
Yeah, and I think, of course, you think about the millions of black people that are in this country,
Mm-hmm.
and you think about what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said and what Minister Farrakhan has taught about the power of our unity. Now,
That's
imagine if we start to build these institutions ourselves. I mean, again, this is just my belief. My belief is when you start to invest your time and your money into something, you get real interested in what else you are supposed to be getting, and then you start to go after that which is yours. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, for example, said he said that we wanted a separate state of territory where we could basically rule ourselves. But he didn't say just give us a separate state of territory. He said that the American government would be bound or should provide for our needs for 20 to 25 years. So once we build that foundation and get the proper understanding, now as Allah is moving things in a certain way, as we move toward complete and total freedom, the enemy still pays really for the evil done to us. And the other thing the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, and you can find these things in the Muslim program. He said, so long as we are deprived of justice, we should not be paying taxes.
exactly.
So not only do you have the years of economic deprivation, economic exploitation, outright oppression, slavery, suffering, and death, and the accumulation of wealth among whites, and what we did to build and to develop this country, and not only this country, but all of Europe essentially benefited if, in some way from the transatlantic slave trade and then the colonization of Africa after that. And Africa is still dominated by a type of neo-colonialism now, or a type of corporate colonialism now, where you have international bodies that the African nations depend on, for example, for loans and financing. Now they are exploiting the continent. Then you have corporations and companies that operate, that want the rare minerals. Other countries that are buying up farmland in Africa because these countries like China have huge populations that they need to feed. And they don't have the ability to do that with the landmass that they have alone. So my point is that in addition to all of that, you then have the current, indignity of us paying taxes and never reaping the benefit of those taxes. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, so long as we are not given a full and complete freedom, we should not be taxed at all. But again, read the piece and keep reading the final call.
Praise to Allah. And I'm actually trying to find the flyer, but I believe this evening, Student Minister Ava with the team from Project Separation, they'll actually be doing another program this evening, and the focus will be dealing with education. So make sure you look for that via Facebook as well as YouTube. I believe if you go to the Project Separation YouTube channel, you should be able to find more information. Allah willing there. But also with that, I want to send a shout out to a brother that we've actually started our another podcast called Education is the Key. And one of the initiatives that he set out right now, he's providing online classes for free at this point, online science courses, and you can check that out at moscience.academy. So it's moscience.academy, really pushing things to do so that we can provide resources to our people dealing with education and whatever we need. So check out Project Separation, check out moscience.academy. Brother Nava, so we talked about a lot of the things that we're fighting and that are some instances aren't necessarily the most pleasurable things, but of course we always one of the beautiful things that you can always expect to see and find in the Final Call newspaper is that you see that there's some good stuff that's going on, that there's some victories that we're having, that there's some progress that's always being made, and we don't necessarily hear that enough. So I want to jump to an event that's upcoming event that's coming, and we can find this article on page 6. Accept the Challenge, a new standard of beauty. Women Working Together, Inc. presents Worldwide Modest Fashion Week. Can you tell us a little bit about this?
Well, this is Sister Carmen Muhammad, and we may have her on this broadcast, podcast, webcast, however we describe it. We may have her on to talk about it. But essentially, in Chicago, from June 30th, mark these dates, June 30th through July 3rd, there will be the second annual International Modest Arts Awards Gala, which is a dinner, and Fashion Weekend rather, at the Contemporary Arts Museum in Chicago. And this will include, under Sister Carmen Muhammad's leadership, and one of her companies is Alnisa Designs, and she has had a really great success, and not just in America, but she has participated in Fashion Week in Italy, and really got rave reviews for her creations. But this particular event, which she is leading and spearheading, will include events centered around fashion shows that will be Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And again, that's from June 30th through July 3rd. So you can mark that on your calendar. And it's going to include some 25 designers from around the world, including the U.S., Africa, and the Middle East. And they will be presenting their clothing lines live and in person, but there'll also be a virtual component if you can't make it to Chicago. So you can really see, the whole vision for the world in fashion, and not just women's fashion, but also men's fashion. So some of the people that will be participating will be Maca Mandela, the daughter of the late Nelson Mandela, who will showcase her House of Mandela's Struggle Series streetwear collection. Her daughter will be making presentations. Mr. Mandela's granddaughter will be making presentations on behalf of the mother. And so there's going to be a number of different events going on. There will be a banquet and awards, and actually one of the honorees will be Mother Khadija Farrakhan, First Lady of the Nation of Islam, who will be given what the organizers call the Global First Lady Queendom Award. And this is for Mother Farrakhan's work in designing the official garment of Muslim women in the nation, as well as her many years of innovation and style in the area of modest dress. So, I mean, it's really a full weekend. And you can go to www.chicagomfw, that's chicagomfw.com, and get more information. Or just go to just again, go to finalcall.com, and see what is happening, and the beauty of women, and Muslim women, and their creativity to really present women at the level um, at the level that they should be presented, and with the type of respect, and also again, clothes for men, that have us looking our best, and have us looking stylish, and like the powerful beings that we are. So it's going to be a really great time. We encourage you to get involved, into whether you attend in person or if you attend virtually. And again, this is June 30th through July 3rd, the second annual International Modest Arts Awards Gala and Fashion Weekend at the Contemporary Arts Museum in Chicago.
Praise
And that's Sister Carmen Muhammad, Carmen Muhammad, is leading this effort, and her company is Al Nisa Designs rather, and you will have others as well that will be presenting their fashion creation. So again, it's going to be a great time, and it's good to be able to come to something like this, and to enjoy the beauty, not just of the designs and not just of the models, but the beauty of the event and the idea behind the event itself. So you can look forward to having a very enjoyable, highly civilized, but very fun, conference and fashion week. So, learn about it, support it, go to finalcall.com and read our coverage.
Praise you to Allah. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And of course, you can see in the chat area, you can see that address, Chicago, mfw.com, and you see the beautiful website. So go ahead and check it out and visit for more information, and go ahead and get your tickets. So we want to jump down. Of course, I want to throw a little bit more positive energy out there. And if we jump to page 33 of the paper, there's a beautiful article, or actually two beautiful articles. One dealing with Tampa Mosque celebrates the 1 year anniversary. The Atlanta Mosque number 15, celebrated their Eid celebration. Um, Beautiful. It appears to be a beautiful event. And of course, that covers that we always expect, seeing the brothers out in the community, in the streets, doing the work, resurrecting the dead. And some people are like, well, they just look and say, well, y'all all y'all have is a paper. But when you hear the stories, and Brother Nava, we need to get more of those stories of people, that have actually really, it was the Final Call newspaper that changed their lives. It was them coming in contact with the brother with the Final Call. Yes, sir, Brother Lewis. It was somebody coming in contact with one of the FOI with the paper, and there's something in that paper that they read, and it touched their heart and impacted a spiral of events that changed the directions of their lives. And for some, everybody has had that different experience, but there are several I've heard that from, where they picked up the paper and it was like, wow, there was one article that they read, or two articles that they read, and it was something that they were dealing with in their lives, and it really hit them and spoke to where they were at that moment. So it's important for the brothers to know, and for also those who see the brothers, to know that we're not just paper boys, that we're not just out here with a paper, but that's only a vehicle in which we utilize so we can get into the hearts of our people. And praise due to Allah. So sister is like, yes, and thanks, praise be to Allah. And brother Lewis said that was him. He was one of those brothers that was out doing whatever he was doing before he came in contact with the Final Call newspaper, and that one of those representatives of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So I think of course, we didn't cover it all. I don't know where you want to jump, or if there's anything you want to touch on.
Well, yeah, of course, we've got the COVID section,
Yes, sir.
which you should read, and we got in international news. And again, keeping track of these developments in Ukraine and elsewhere. Uh, so we got a story in that section about Ukraine and how, experts are saying this whole perfect storm of different issues threatens to really economically devastate countries in the developing world. Then we've got coming out of the UK the story of how these unjust and racist immigration laws being implemented in the United Kingdom, impacting our people, in particular from the Caribbean, who were called to Britain, called to London, called to other places to help rebuild the country after World War II, and now they're being pushed out of the country, and under the guise of they don't have proper immigration papers. So again, sign of the times and who our enemy is, and what we need to do, and why we need to come together. Then we got a Africa Watch column deals with the important issue of farming in Africa. And we've got some good interviews, and Jaron Muhammad, who writes this column, he talks about how Africa's major problem when it comes to farming is neglect, and how Africa, from an analyst and somebody who works in this arena in Africa, talked about how, many times the continent has been growing things that it doesn't need. For example, in Kenya, much of the agricultural land has been used to grow flowers. Some has been used to grow food and fruit, but those things for export in this quote unquote global economy. So Kenya, major importer of food, and land that could be used for farming, used to grow flowers that can be sold in Europe. So again, you really need to read the Final Call. I'd like to close with, of course, the minister's article for this week.
And brother, let me before you jump that, I don't want to miss our brother, and of course we want to close with the minister. But of course, we all those who have fought and have soldiered in the cause of Islam, when we have the opportunity, we want to remember them. So our brother Naji Muhammad,
yes,
passing of a soldier, who was a gift from God. I didn't get a chance to read this article yet. What our beautiful brothers from Philadelphia, can you touch a little bit about
brother Naji, man, well-known Muslim fighter. I guess Muslim could be the highest compliment that I could pay him. Out of Philadelphia, worked for many, many years, many different types of effort, whether it was helping to make sure that a cemetery that was supposed to be for Muslims was properly cared for, as well as supporting the radio broadcast of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan in Philadelphia, so that light remains and that there's always a place where our people can go. Brother Naji was also a founding member of the Black Male Council of Philadelphia. And just involved in so much of the work of the resurrection. And we wanted to really just pay tribute, to this great soldier and servant of Allah out of the great city of Philadelphia. So we thank Allah for Brother Naji, and we hope that we will all draw strength from his commitment and his work. Also, June 11th, we got the Save Our Sons conference in Chicago, so come on down. Chicago, June 11th, go to the Final Call and read about that conference, spearheaded by student minister here in Chicago, Shaheed Muhammad. We got another story also. If we're going to do a quick roundup,
What page are you going to?
I'm going to go to page 24. And this is, of course, the redemptive power of Islam, where these brothers that are incarcerated, they are great believers, great soldiers, man, and they are given, or Allah brings the light of Islam, often at a very difficult price. These brothers and sisters in these institutions are not, unfortunately, very often they are not, even though they become better with Islam, they are not given. They are not given the credit and even the assistance that would make them better. So we got very important story here. Um, and so we want you to just go ahead and read that. That's by Sister Chantel, but it's a very interesting and uplifting story. Um, got a couple other stories. One, the daughter of Reverend Willie Wilson, Union Temple Baptist Church in the D.C. area. Of course, he's retired. His daughter has now taken over his ministry. And really one of the giants, that's on page 30, and really one of the giants of Black theologians, a man who had a tremendous impact here in Chicago at Trinity United Church of Christ, but also a man who had a national and international impact. The Reverend Dr. Jeremiah Wright was honored at Howard University. So we wanted to present again these two stories of our brothers and sisters in ministry and highlight the work that they do. And we, by Allah's grace, pray that He will give them great success and richly reward them for their years of service and their work to bring our people out of spiritual darkness and the light. And this is another reason why our uh, unity is so important. So we don't engage in religious gangbanging. We talk about young people, and what they do because they don't know and because conditions exist in our neighborhoods that we have allowed to persist as adults. But we often engage in a similar thing on a religious level. We think a lot of that the minister has never engaged in such. He has taught us that, we're one family, one people. And I
Yes.
tell you, brothers and sisters, it's one thing to see this kind of Black Christians and Black Muslims getting along in America. When you look at sometimes those relationships outside of this country, sometimes they're very difficult. Oftentimes there are also ethnic and economic aspects to it as well. But man, what the minister has been blessed to do by Allah and through the guidance of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in bridging that gap between our communities is really amazing. And we should not take it for granted. We should continue to build on it. So the last article I like to close with is the minister's article, The Cause and Effect of a Violent Society. And the minister in this article talks about how there is a need for peace and how Jesus greeted his disciples and those who came into his path with the greetings of peace. But when you look at what is happening in the country, the minister talks about the wickedness of this country. And he talks about how the violence starts at the top and then it trickles down and then there is a consequence. There's a consequence. And so he writes um, of the great work of Jesus, the example of Jesus, gives insight into the teachings of Jesus, the way of Jesus, and what we need to do to extract ourselves and extract our children out of this very violent culture, a culture that's violent, whether we see it domestically or internationally. Again, going back to the cover story, America providing fuel for war in the name of seeking peace. And as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, you can never have peace when you are pouring fuel on that which will feed conflict. So I guess that's it. So Troy, you still there?
I,
So
I, I was just talking to myself and but
mm,
even that's it for the coverage that we're gonna have today. But we still encourage. We didn't cover everything in the paper, so you still need to go ahead and get your latest edition of the Final Call newspaper. Support Black business. It's not just as we've mentioned. It's not just the newspaper. It's revelation. It's guidance. It's all of those things that our people are looking for. It's all those things that sometimes you don't even know that you need something. But when you pick up the paper, if you take the time, the opportunity to read it, and if you get the digital edition, if you take the opportunity to allow it to be read to you, you definitely will be well fed. Any closing words, Brother Naba?
well, just thanking everybody, and again, like, share, subscribe, like, share, subscribe, and just keep spreading the information about this podcast, webcast, whatever we call it these days, and hopefully you got something out of it. And we just ask you if you did to share it with others. We'd like to continue to grow.
Praise be to Allah. Thank you once again for supporting another episode of Behind the Final Call Cover Story. God willing, you'll see us again next week. Please bring a family, bring a friend, and all those things, and share with the family and friends and other members of your family. Just want to once again, I was trying to bring it up and having a little technological issues again, but I just want to remind you once again, this Saturday, June 11th, Brother Shaheed Muhammad, right here in Chicago, will have his presentation. It's a free event. I believe there's usually free food. Did I say free? It's a
Yeah,
free
we say free. That's like it don't cost you no money. Just come on in.
no money, just an investment of your time. And if you're like, well, I really don't need nothing like that myself, I'm quite sure there's some young man that would benefit from it. So go ahead and take the opportunity and find one of your nephews, find one of your cousins, find that family member that could use and benefit from some guidance and direction in their lives. Different programs dealing with technology, planning your future, all those things you can expect to get from this event. And I think I got the flyer right here. And if I can show this real quick, then we will close out on that. So right here, you can see the flyer. I got a lot going on my screen, so work with me. Oops.
Yeah, and brothers and sisters, I would add this. It's certainly we want those of our children that are having difficulty. We want them to participate, but bring the ones that are doing well
Yes, sir.
because they need to be encouraged. They need to be in a place where they can hear men saying to them, while the world is saying, destroy yourself, they can hear, and I mean men who sound like men.
That's right.
It won't be mealy mouth men. It won't be men that you're getting a weak presentation on emasculated black men. You will get strong men, some who have had problems in their lives that can say, hey, man, this is what I overcame. Others that have been very successful by Allah's grace that can say to the young people, hey, this was the path I took to success. So really come on out. If you're in Chicago, there's actually, I know at least one young brother who's literally coming from all the way from Baltimore, Maryland to
Wow.
participate in this conference. So very important, and it's fun. It's fun. You'll enjoy it. It's not boring. I participated in past years, and it's a beautiful afternoon. So come on out and enjoy.
Praise you to Allah. You can see the information right there on the screen at Muhammad University of Islam, 7351 South Stony Island. Of course, that's June 11th, 2022, 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. And that's, of course, Central Time. See you there. Once again, another edition of Behind the Final Call cover story. May Allah continue to strengthen us and bless us all. Assalamu alaikum. Peace be unto you.
Now you can get the same uncompromising truth you've come to expect from the Final Call newspaper on all your connected devices. Subscribe to the Final Call Digital Edition today. Go to subscribe.finalcalldigital.com.